There's something deeply unsettling about a phone ringing in the middle of the night. That shrill tone echoing through the darkness never feels right at 3 a.m. But what if the caller is someone who shouldn't be able to dial anymore? Someone who's been buried for years? Tonight, you'll hear 3 terrifying true stories of phone calls that came from beyond the grave. Calls that defied logic, shattered peace, and left the living with questions no one should ever have to ask. Keep your phone close, but after these stories, you might never want to answer it again. Story 1. The voicemail from her sister. It had been 9 months since Emily lost her sister Claire. A drunk driver had swerved into Claire's lane one rainy night, ending her life instantly. Claire had been just 27. Emily was the one who identified the body. The grief that followed didn't feel like a wave. It felt like drowning. Every night, Emily would check Claire's social media, reread old texts, and listen to saved voicemails just to hear her voice again. Claire had always been the louder one, the fearless one. She was the kind of person who made a room feel alive the moment she stepped into it. Her death left a silence that Emily could never quite fill. It was a Thursday night, nearly 3 a.m., when Emily's phone rang. She jolted awake, heart pounding. Her bedroom was pitch dark, and she fumbled for her phone on the nightstand. The screen glowed. No caller ID. Her stomach dropped. She let it ring, unsure why she was suddenly frozen. The call ended. A second later, a notification. New voicemail. Still half asleep, but now uneasy, she played it on speaker. At first, nothing. Just a static hum. Then came the voice. "Em, I'm cold." It was Claire's voice. No question. Slightly shaky, like she was whispering in the dark. Emily dropped the phone. Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at it lying face up on the blanket, the message still playing. "I don't know where I am. It's so dark. Can you hear me?" There was a gasp. A horrible, slow gasp like someone struggling for breath. Then, "Please don't forget me." The voicemail ended. Emily sat there for nearly an hour, shaking. She replayed it again and again until the words imprinted on her brain. She checked the number, still listed as unknown. She saved the voicemail, backed it up, even recorded it on another device. The next morning, she called her phone provider. They insisted there was no record of any call received at 2:59 a.m. Her voicemail inbox, according to them, had not been accessed or updated in the past week. But Emily had the recording. She uploaded it to her laptop, then emailed a copy to herself. She couldn't risk losing it. Her friends tried to be supportive, but they chalked it up to grief. "Maybe it was an old voicemail that got stuck in the system," one said. Another suggested, "Maybe you were dreaming." But Claire had never said those words before. Emily had listened to all her old messages hundreds of times. This one was different. Claire sounded distant, scared. 2 weeks passed, then it happened again. Another no-caller ID call. Same time, 2:59 a.m. Emily answered it this time. Hands trembling, her heart thudding in her ears. There was a crackle, then a whisper. "You're not listening to me." It was Claire again, but this time her voice had an edge to it. Urgency, desperation. "I'm trying to get out, but he's watching me." Emily's blood turned to ice. "Who? Who's watching you?" she whispered into the phone. But Claire didn't respond. "I think he knows I called before," Claire said. "He's angry now. Please, Em, don't forget me. Don't forget who I was. That's how I disappear." Then the line went dead. Emily didn't sleep for days. She scoured online forums about ghost calls, tried contacting psychics, paranormal investigators, anyone who might help. One medium told her, "Sometimes the dead reach out when they're caught between places, especially when the living hold on to them too tightly." Emily couldn't let go of Claire, but the fear was growing now. Who was he? That night, Emily returned to Claire's old bedroom at their parents' house. It had been left untouched since Claire died. She searched through drawers, journals, even under the bed, hoping for some kind of message, anything that could make sense of the calls. And she found something. Stuffed in the back of Claire's closet was a shoebox filled with letters. Unsent letters, all addressed to someone named Jay. Most were confessions. Some were angry. But one stood out. It was dated 3 weeks before Claire's death. Open quote. "Jay, you scare me now. The things you say, the things you do. If something happens to me, Emily will know. She'll figure it out." Close quote. Emily's hands were shaking. She didn't know who Jay was, but clearly something had been wrong. She showed the letter to the police. They agreed to reopen Claire's case, but without hard evidence, there was little they could do. Then came the third call. It was the last one. Same time. 2:59 a.m. Emily answered immediately. Claire's voice was faint. Tired. "I don't have much time," she said. Emily begged her to explain, to tell her who Jay was, to give her a name. But Claire didn't respond directly. "You're getting closer," she whispered. "But he's almost found a way to follow." Emily's heart raced. "What do you mean follow? Follow who?" Then something happened. The voice changed. Not Claire's anymore. A deep, distorted voice came through, low and guttural. "She's mine now." The call ended. Emily stared at the phone, tears in her eyes, her hands numb. That voice, whoever it belonged to, felt wrong, not human. And it knew she had been looking. It knew. She changed her number, deleted her social media, went off the grid. She moved in with her aunt in another state and left everything behind. To this day, the voicemails remain on an encrypted flash drive. Emily never plays them anymore. She's too afraid of what might come through next time. But sometimes, late at night, when she's lying in bed and the world is quiet, she swears she hears her phone buzz, even when it's turned off. And it's always around 2:59 a.m. Story 2, the number that was disconnected. It started on a warm August night in 2011. Jason Lohr was sitting alone in his apartment in Tempe, Arizona, going through old photos. It had been exactly 1 year since his father passed away from a heart attack, and something about the quiet night pushed him to revisit memories he'd spent the last 12 months trying to suppress. His father, Peter Lohr, was a man of deep structure, an engineer, punctual to a fault, emotionally reserved but dependable. Their relationship was built on quiet routines: Sunday morning breakfasts, silent car rides with music too low to hear, and long moments of sitting side by side saying nothing. But it was enough. Jason missed that silence now more than anything else. At around 11:40 p.m., Jason's phone buzzed. The number flashed on the screen was familiar. Not because he recognized it, but because of the way it made his stomach drop. 602-555-3287. That was his father's number. He stared at it, the air in the room going cold, even though the desert heat still clung to the walls. He didn't answer. He told himself later that it must have been a telemarketer, or maybe a recycled number. Carriers reassign numbers all the time, right? But when he checked his voicemail the next morning, there was a message. The timestamp read 3:03 a.m. The message was 6 seconds long, and it was breathing. Not the wind, not static, not a glitch. Just slow, heavy, measured breathing. And then a click. Jason listened to it a dozen times, memorized the rise and fall of each inhale. He knew that pattern. His father used to breathe like that when he fell asleep in his recliner during late-night TV. There was even a faint crackle, like the leather of that same chair shifting under weight. It couldn't be. But curiosity outpaced fear. Jason called the number back. "This number has been disconnected," an automated voice said. He called again, same message. The following night, the phone rang again, same number. This time, Jason answered. "Hello?" he said, voice trembling. There was silence on the other end. Then the same breathing. Jason's voice cracked. "Dad?" The breathing paused. Then a single word, so faint it might have been imagined, "Son." The line went dead. That night, Jason didn't sleep. He couldn't decide whether to be afraid or grateful. A part of him believed he had somehow been given a final goodbye, something beyond science or reason. He told a close friend about it, hoping for comfort. Instead, the friend looked disturbed and said something that haunted Jason for days. "If it was your dad, why would he be calling from the time he died?" Jason froze. He hadn't considered that. The coroner's report had listed time of death, 3:03 a.m. The same time the voicemail came in. The same time the second call connected. The following week, Jason drove to the cemetery where his father was buried. He sat by the grave for hours, hoping for a sign, an answer, anything. He even brought his phone, volume maxed, hoping it would ring again. It didn't. But that night, when Jason returned home, something had changed in the apartment. The recliner his dad used to sit in, the one Jason had kept in the corner out of sentiment, was facing the TV. It had been angled toward the window when he left. On the coffee table, his phone was sitting screen up. The call log showed no missed calls, no voicemails, but there was a draft message open on the screen. Just one word typed in the text field, "Goodbye." Jason moved out a week later. He kept the phone, kept the message, but he never received another call from that number. At least, not yet. Story 3. You forgot something. It was the last week of summer break when Maya Callahan and her family packed up their rental cabin in northern Michigan. The trip had been her father's idea, a quiet, off-the-grid getaway from the city where there was no internet, no work emails, and no distractions. Just them, a lake, and an old cabin built sometime in the 1950s, complete with creaky floors and faded wallpaper that smelled like pine and mildew. Maya was 17, about to start her senior year. She spent most of the week reading old thrillers by the lake or sketching in her journal, occasionally joining her younger brother Jonah in looking for frogs or skipping stones. It was quiet, peaceful. But something about the cabin unsettled her. It wasn't haunted in any obvious way. No footsteps, no flickering lights. But it had that kind of stillness that felt watched. Like the walls remembered things you didn't. Their last night was uneventful. They made s'mores, packed their bags, and loaded the car. Maya was the last one to leave the cabin. She did a final sweep to make sure they hadn't left anything behind, checked under the beds, inside drawers, even the dusty old closet near the front door where no one had stored anything all week. Inside that closet, on the top shelf, was an old rotary phone. She didn't remember seeing it before. It was cream-colored with a cracked receiver and a long, tangled cord. Out of curiosity, she picked it up. The dial tone buzzed loud in her ear, clear and crisp. It struck her as odd. Weren't they supposed to be off the grid? No signal, no cell reception, no landline. And yet this phone worked? Before she could process it, the tone cut out. There was a long pause. Then a voice whispered through the receiver, "You forgot something." Maya froze. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't answer, didn't even breathe. After a moment, the line went dead. Shaking, she put the receiver back on the hook, stepped out of the closet, and slammed the door. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe the phone picked up a stray signal from a nearby line, if any existed. She told herself it didn't matter. They were leaving. They drove home in silence. She didn't tell her parents what happened. Back in Detroit, things returned to normal for a little while. 3 nights later, Maya was up late, texting a friend, when her cell phone vibrated. The screen lit up with a number she didn't recognize. 906-402-1941. She didn't answer. A minute later, a voicemail came through. She hesitated, then hit play. It was faint static, then breathing. And then the same whisper. "You forgot something." She threw her phone across the bed. The next morning, she looked up the area code. 906. That was Michigan's Upper Peninsula, near the cabin. Over the next week, the calls came at random intervals. Always late at night, always the same number. Sometimes it would call 3 times in a row, sometimes just once. No one ever spoke more than those 3 words. She tried blocking the number, but then it would come through as unknown, always leaving the same message. "You forgot something." She began to lose sleep. Her parents noticed, but she lied, said it was school stress, said it was senior year anxiety. But it wasn't anxiety that made her wake up at 3:17 a.m. to find her phone vibrating on the floor, even though she had powered it off. It wasn't anxiety that made her bedroom light flicker, or that made her dog bark and growl at the closet even when it was empty. Eventually, Maya decided to confront it. She recharged her courage with anger. If it wanted her attention, it had it. She waited for the next call. It came at 2:51 a.m., 2 nights later. She picked up. "What do you want?" she whispered. Silence. Then, "You forgot something." "I didn't forget anything," she said, hands shaking. "I brought everything back. We didn't leave anything behind." This time, the voice didn't whisper. It spoke slowly, almost gently. "Check your sketchbook." The line disconnected. Maya sat up in bed. Her sketchbook was on the desk across the room. She flipped through it. Pages of rough charcoal drawings, trees, lake reflections, birds, her brother asleep in a hammock. Then she reached the last page. She froze. She didn't draw this. The sketch was of the cabin, but not from the outside. It was from inside the closet, looking out. The perspective was wrong, off-kilter. The door was cracked just enough to see a girl, her, standing in the hallway, holding the receiver of the rotary phone. The pencil lines were sharp, frantic. The shading around the edges looked like claw marks. She slammed the book shut. That weekend, she convinced her dad to take a detour during a college visit road trip. She didn't tell him why. Just said she wanted to see the lake one last time. They reached the cabin by late afternoon. It looked just the same, still, quiet, abandoned for the season. Maya walked straight to the front door. It was unlocked. Inside, everything smelled older, like it had aged 10 years in a month. Dust floated in thick beams of light through the windows. She went to the closet. The rotary phone was gone. In its place was a small box, wrapped in a strip of torn cloth. She didn't remember packing it, didn't remember seeing it before, but it had her name written in faded black marker on the top. Inside was her necklace, a small gold locket her mother had given her when she turned 16. She hadn't even noticed it was missing. She picked it up. As soon as her fingers touched the chain, a loud click echoed from the closet wall. She looked up. There, behind where the phone had been mounted, was a small hidden compartment. Inside was a photograph, yellowed with age. It was a picture of a girl about Maya's age, from maybe the 1970s. She was standing in front of the cabin, smiling, but her eyes were hollow. Not metaphorically, literally. Someone had gouged them out with something sharp. On the back of the photo was a note. "We remember who leaves us behind." Maya left the photo, closed the box, and walked out of the cabin without a word. She never got another call again, but she never forgot the voice either. And sometimes, late at night, when her phone buzzes from an unknown number, even though she knows it's just spam, her hand hesitates, because deep down, part of her still expects to hear those words again. You forgot something. They say the dead can't speak, but every now and then, something pierces that silence, a message, a warning, or just a whisper that things aren't quite over. Whether these calls were echoes of grief, glitches in reality, or something far darker, one thing is certain: they were heard. And once you hear a voice that shouldn't exist, you never forget the sound. Keep your phone close and your mind open, because the next ring might not come from this world.